Alright, so for my GCSE product design, I'm going to create something that helps with storage, transport and performance of music stands and music accessories. So can you say a bit about yourself, like what instruments you play and what your job is and things like that?
I'm Simon Eastwood. I play the violin, viola. I used to play the oboe. Did my grade 8 and then not a lot after. I dabble on the drums, piano and guitar, but only because I was sort of forced to for my job really. I'm also a professional musician at weekends. I run my own function band, my jazz band, and we travel up and down the country performing at corporate events and weddings and things like that. So I've got two ends of the spectrum, teaching primary school music children, the basics, and then I get to play with musicians from the West End at the weekend. So it's kind of two ends of the spectrum, really. Yeah.
So I'm assuming for that you have a lot of sheet music you have to.
So for the band.
For both.
Yeah. So music-wise, I've built up a repertoire over the last sort of 10 to 15 years really. I've got big band music which I carry around in a Sainsbury's carrier bag, which has probably cost me about £4,000 or £5,000 over the years to have arranged for me. So I choose the sort of Sinatra tune I want, the original tune I want, and then I get a professional arranger, one of my friends, to do each chart. And then my other small band stuff for weddings and things like that is anything from 5-piece up to 10-piece band, and that again is carried around into long life carrier bags in folders, and my plan is to digitalise it when I've finished work here, so that it's kind of not lost forever in case it kind of gets stolen, God forbid, or gets lost in transit when I emigrate to Australia soon. Yeah, it's so sheet music wise, that's what happens. With school stuff, the orchestra, the people that use, we have 50 children in our orchestra, and they get through a lot of sheet music because it's easily lost. In September, I've spoken to the new music teacher to put in some kind of things to enable that doesn't happen. So every single member of the orchestra is going to have their own folder with all the music in it and a name on every piece of music, which is something I've wanted to do for a while. So that if it's left after a rehearsal, we know whose it is. We know that each child has the same bit of music each week if they bring their own folder to rehearsals, etc., etc. It's just to make it a bit more manageable, because children are children, and they don't always tidy up after themselves, and becomes a bit of a nightmare.
So if you wanted to find a specific piece in your thing, how easy would that
in the repertoire of all the orchestra music I've got, I just go to the cupboard. I've got all the parts and all the music for all the songs that I've done in the cupboard. I generally find a song that fits. So if they've got a concert coming up with a theme, then I will choose songs for that theme. Then I'll arrange it specifically. Even if it's something I've arranged before in the past, I'll rearrange it, because every year the dynamics and of the orchestra change, in as much as when year 6 leave, you could have suddenly 12 violins leave you, or the whole flute section leave, or 15 cellos leave all at once for some whatever reason, and so that arrangement you did last time you did it won't necessarily work. So I will always make sure that the arrangements I've got are working, but I just go to the cupboard and write out some more parts if necessary. Yeah.
How often do you need to take your Sainsbury's carrier bag places?
Every week. Yeah, it stays in the van. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it stays in the back of the van. It's carried into the venue and carried back out again. It's not the most glamorous of things, but there's no one there to see it. I don't really need a sort of fancy case or anything. I suppose it would be nice if I had some kind of hardware case that I use to keep it from being squashed or ripped in the back of the van. That's happened on a couple of occasions I've had to ask the arranger to send me another part because it got damaged. Or worse still, when we're outside playing and then suddenly it starts raining and the ink runs and the music's kind of ruined. And if I don't have a digital version of it that I can just print out again, then it's kind of either lost forever or I have to pay for another copy to be done by the person who originally arranged it. Yeah.
So do you use a music stand for performance?
So with the band, I use acrylic music stands. They are standard big band stands, and what they do is they're in two parts. The actual stand part, which is almost like a square where the music rests, and then underneath that is originally it's flat out, but then the two ends fold inwards, and then the top bit goes on top, slots on top. And they come in two different sizes. I mean, I've got some in the van I can show you, but there's a logo on the front, and as I say, they're kind of flat pack, so they go through it on the side of the van. They do take up a bit of room when they're up on stage, but they're the standard big band stand that every big band in the country uses. Pretty much, the small ones you'd use for the saxophone players, and then the large ones would be for trombones and trumpets, depending on whether they're standing or sitting. Normally trombones use the small ones as well, and trumpets will stand at the back of the big band and play with the large ones. Double bass and would use a large one, and then piano, guitar and drums would use a small one. So yeah, they're standard size, and they're hard wearing and easy to carry around. They're nice and light.
And do you use a music stand when you're teaching?
Not during class lessons. I used to when I taught violin and oboe, but only when that was like one-on-one lessons. Obviously, you need a music stand for that. No, most of my teaching is either done from behind a piano or standing in front of the board. I don't use one at all really at school.
Okay. So for your instruments, do you have any like accessories like rosin and bows and things like that?
The ones I use personally, or just all the school ones?
Both.
Yeah, I mean, every child that hires an instrument from the school gets, if it's a violin, they'll have a bow, or have rosin and a music book, a practice book. So they're kind of fully equipped when they start their instrument. They've got all the gadgets and gizmos. And that goes for any instrument really. You have to make sure that they can practice at home successfully, and that they know how to treat their instrument, how to set it up and things like that. So having all those accessories is really important. Yeah.
With your own instruments, do you just store your things in the case, or do you have a special box that you...
With my violin and viola, they're in oblong, rectangular cases, not the violin-shaped cases. They're just sort of more professional. They hold more stuff, and they can keep sheet music uncreased in the top of the case, which is very difficult to do in a violin-shaped case. I can't remember the question. Sorry, the cases. Yeah, the oboe had just a little case. Couldn't fit any music in there, and same goes for guitar. Yeah.
Are there any other issues you encounter with like storing and transporting your musical kit that...
Yeah. Well, look, there's general wear and tear. Things get thrown about in the back of the van. If I was serious about keeping my equipment in tip-top condition, I would have a purpose-built sort of MDF wood panel type compartment storage things in my van, where everything would go in and would be kind of completely encased without it being able to move around. It would be protected from rubbing against other things in the back of the van. It would be protected from everything else. The problem with that is that sometimes I use the van for lots of other things. So if it was a permanent structure in the back, it would be problematic. It'd be fine if you're just carrying the same stuff day in, day out. But there's loads of stuff I bring in for school, or have to transport, stuff for my kids to other people's houses, or moving house. It was handy to have the back of the van completely empty. So I decided against it, and of course you change van every few years. But that's if I didn't always store it in a van. Sometimes it was stored at home, but now I live on the third floor, so it's just handier to have it in the back of the van. But yeah, that would be something, or maybe something that could just be pushed in and pulled out, of some kind of wooden structure or something. And also, I do have flight cases, the hard protective cases for the really important electrical stuff, like my sound desk and microphones and things like that. But yeah, it's something I probably should have taken a bit more care over, because after 10 years of stuff in the back, you have to start replacing things.
As a primary school music teacher, do you think that your pupils struggle with keeping their music tidy and bringing it into school when they have to?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, like I said with orchestra, there's always. I don't think there's ever been a rehearsal in orchestra where someone hasn't forgotten their music. They have to take it home to practice. Again, one way around it would be to have a set of music at school and a set of music at home. That's pretty time consuming to arrange all of that. That would mean 100 children that you are printing out music for, and that's just one piece. So if you're doing 3 pieces, it's 300 bits of music that you have to arrange and put into folders and things. It's a bit over the top. I think that part of the reason I don't think I have done that is because I think that the children kind of need to learn to remember to bring it in, and know that Tuesday is orchestra day, and that Tuesday is the day they need to remember their music. And when they pick up their instrument, they automatically pick up their music as well, and then not have to rely on having music at school, music at home. And just, otherwise they just don't learn. With the clubs that I run, keyboard clubs and guitar clubs, it tends to not be so much of a problem, because they have a book that they work to, and if they forget their book, there's always someone in the group that has one that they can share, and they normally share 2 to a book. So even if it's a club of 8 children and 4 forget their books, then there's still enough music that everyone can see. But the only disadvantage is then that you can't write everything that you want to write in the book to help them succeed with their practice at home. So it's not ideal when they do forget it, but it's not the end of the world.
Do you have a problem with the music stands you have to use in school?
Well, we purchased these sturdy, big black music stands with the holes in. Those are pretty hard wearing. I purchased quite a few of those 10 years ago, and I think there's only a couple that have broken. We do supplement those with the less sturdy, the more flimsy, thin, the ones the thinner music stands. Yeah. But yeah, I find that I tend to give the bigger, sturdier ones to the younger children who have got big instruments. So because it's always a bit clumsy, them playing sort of a big cello and music kind of falling off, or them hitting the music with their bow by accident. I think that the bigger ones are better for the younger ones. But as far as storage, it's a bit of a nightmare. We just shove them in the corner of the room or under a shelf down there, and every week you have to pick them up and put them down again, and that takes a whole lunchtime, getting the stands and stools out and preparing to set up orchestra. But yeah.
So when the children are turning over their music or putting up their music, how often does that go slightly pear-shaped, do you think?
Quite a lot, but not as often as you'd think. It's happened once in a concert, which was dealt with brilliantly, because it was a cellist, and they dropped a bit of music and just spiked it with their bow on the floor, as in stabbed it on the floor and picked it up, and then put it back on the stand afterwards within a few seconds, and no one really noticed. I thought it was brilliant. I think she missed a couple of notes because of the hole in the music, but in rehearsals it's a little bit annoying, if I'm honest. I'd rather they used the music in those A4 plastic wallets inside a flat folder, a folder that would not the folder would sit flat on a music stand, because these individual sheets crease easily, they get folded and put in instrument cases, and then they try and put them up on a stand and it just kind of falls off. So yeah, that's it's not ideal, and they do quite regularly drop them on the floor, but again not quite as often as you think they would, being primary school kids. But yeah.
Do you think there are any other issues with the available products associated with them being children, like weak finger strength, being disorganised, things like that?
Weak finger strength? Do you mean with music stands in particular?
With everything
I spend one session a year teaching the children how to put up stands and take them down, because it's a nightmare, they still forget after a while. It's quite tricky. It's quite fiddly. I've had people injure themselves when they've loosened a music stand a bit, and then the thing has fallen down onto their finger, squished their finger. I've had those age-old issues of the flimsy music stands where they're folded the wrong way back, and then the metal bends, and then they kind of break. It's a regular sight seeing kids struggle with music stands at the end of rehearsal, and I mean, bless them, they come up and they sometimes give up their lunchtime, a bit of their lunchtime, 10 or 15 minutes to help me set up. They all have to help pack away, but again, sometimes that's hampered by people not knowing what they're doing. I think music stands in general are really annoying. Ideally, the music would be on an iPad stand, and the iPad stands would just stay permanently up, and the iPads would stay permanently on, and I'd connect my Mac up to... there's a guy called Harry Connick Jr., really famous American jazz singer, been in lots of films as well, and his players play off Macs as a music stand or Mac screen, so you just see this lovely sort of blue glow on their faces when they're playing, but he can control it. And he can, when there's a repeat, it automatically goes back to where the music should be. So no one forgets a repeat. No one. He can write on the sheet music personal kind of ideas. Play it this way. Don't forget that. Coming up is your solo. Blah blah blah. You can just write personal messages from his computer, and it's such a lovely way of doing it. Obviously, it's quite a lot of work, packing all this up. But he's a worldwide musician. He can afford to do that, and he's got the time to do that. But yeah, having iPads on a stand and having the children play for them, and with the music scrolling, it's all connected to the audio. So the music will scroll at the speed of the music is going. It listens to the music, hears the pulse, and it will go at the right speed, so it doesn't go too quickly or too slowly for the player to see. So there's some really good technology out there, but for a primary school with 350 children, it's not conducive to our budget at the moment.
That was my last question.
Right.
So
I don't know how helpful that's been, but
that's been very helpful. Thank you.